सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करम् समस्तजनकल्याणे निरतं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्मविद्वरम् सर्ववेदान्तसिद्धान्त गोचरं तमगोचरं गोविन्दं परमानन्दं सद्गुरुं प्रणतोऽस्म्यहम्. So we are seeing the new portion now from today, which is the glory of self-knowledge. What we saw was when the student approached the teacher and the questions were asked, the teacher spoke about the importance of self-effort and why the effort is important because it is so subtle. Now here, the next portion, what was earlier mentioned, that again is getting a little elaborated, that the direct means to know the truth is only self-knowledge. Other aspects are preparatory means. So verse number na yoge nana sankhena karmana no na vidyaya brahmatmaikatva bodhena moksha siddhyati nanyatha. So he says here that na yogena na sankhena, not by yoga, not by sankhya, not by karma, and not by upasana. So four yogas. Yoga indicates the Raja Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Sankhya is the philosophy, one of the Shad Darshanas. Then Karma is the ritualistic portion, and Upasana, Vidya is the Upasana or Bhakti part. So these four, he says, by none of these will one know the except abidance in the truth. Brahmatmaikatva bodhena. Only by the knowledge of essential oneness of the Atman and Brahman, vina moksho siddhyati nanyatha. A person will get moksha from no other method except this knowledge of oneness of Atman and Brahman. So Brahmatmaikatva bodha is the direct means of knowledge. The other four are the preparatory means. Each one by themselves will not lead to the truth, but they will prepare the mind for the truth. And as a combination also, each of them can help because we have a body, mind, intellect. So for each aspect of the personality, sometimes we may have to use different yogas. Aurobindo used to call it as integral yoga. So it is a combination of all the types of yogas to cater to different levels of the personality. So na yogena, yoga can help to quieten the mind. Dharana, dhyan, and in samadhi, mind has become quiet. But again the mind comes back from that state. As a finite entity, one comes back. Unless the knowledge of the self happens in that state, which is so, mind becoming completely quiet is not equal to Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. When we say all the thoughts are stilled, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, by itself that is not leading to Brahmagyan, because that Brahmagyan arises out of a contemplative mind. Mind which is contemplating on the oneness intuitively realizes the truth that I am that pure consciousness, which is a consciousness in the whole world. And the division goes of the Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. That is Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. So then why should I do yoga? to discipline the body, to align the pranas, to quieten the mind, bring the body mind into alignment, and with that equipment, contemplate on the truth. So, yoga is for that. Sankhya is a philosophy, intellectual clarity, thinking. So, this whole world is made up of Prakriti and Purusha. Without Prakriti, Purusha cannot express. Without Purusha, Prakriti cannot be enlivened. It is Jada Vastu. So both these together constitute the world. Like Gurudev used to give the example of electricity and bulb. Electricity is the Purusha, bulb is the Prakriti. Both must come together, then light happens. So in the same way, Purusha and Prakriti come together. Now the difference between Sankhya. Sankhya is one of the 6 schools of philosophy. Actually here the 6 schools of philosophy are indicated. Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga, Purvamimamsa, Uttarmimamsa. These are 6. They are called Shat Darshanas. 6 schools of philosophy. Each of them have their view of life, a whole attitude to live life, their own view of moksha also. So 4 of them are indicated here and 2 others by implication. So first one is yoga here. The second one is Sankhya. So Sankhya believes world is made up of Purusha and Prakriti. And the Purusha in each one is different. The self in me is different, self in you is different, self in an ant is different. The Purusha, the self in each one is different. Uttaramimamsa, which is Vedanta, says no, it is not like that. There is one self which is infinite, which is there in everybody. Like the example given is of the sun. The sun reflects in, let us say, 100 pots of water. Sankhya will say the sun in each pot is different. Vedanta says no, sun is only one. And it is appearing as 100 in the pots because of the water. So in the individual equipments, because of the subtle body, one consciousness reflects. But then how is there a variety in this world? That is because of the nature of the equipment. The quality of the water, the size of the pot, the shape of the pot, etc. So that's the difference between Vedanta and Sankhya, where Sankhya believes Purusha is different for everyone. And Sankhya also will not say that this is world is an illusion. It will come to only Vedanta when we have to say that. So that's why he says here, na yogena, na sankhyena. Then why are we following Sankhya? In the Gita, the 2nd chapter of the Gita is also called Sankhya Yoga. The word Sankhya comes from Sankhya. Sankhya means number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it implies logic, it implies sequence, it implies cause and effect. So a lot of those aspects are required for intellectual thinking and clarity. So one who is following the path of Jnana Marg, questioning, intellectually asking, wanting to know the cause, then that person follows the path of Sankhya or Vedanta, either of these. So na yogena, na sankhyena. Karmana, no, not by karmana. Karma here means the Purva Mimamsa, the ritualistic portion. So the concept of moksha in the ritualistic portion is when rituals are done, we get punya karma, and that lot of punya karma when we do, we go to heaven, and then we are freed from old age, disease and death which we face here on this earth. In the heaven there is no old age, no disease, no death. So a person who is karma mimamsak follows this part where one wants that level of moksha. And so one feels that through karma I will become more and more liberated, more and more purified and more liberated. So once a person believes that, then maximum actions one will do. Lots of rites, rituals, pujas, many karmas, punya karma, dan, all that one will do. So it will help to purify the mind, become more generous, become more single pointed. But like we chant in the Purna Kumbha mantra, na karmana, na prajaya, na dhanena. Through none of these can a person become immortal. Tyage naike amritatva manashuhu. Only by renouncing the ego, renouncing the false notion, the ignorance, a person becomes free. So no karmana, no, na vidyaya. And not by upasana. Upasana helps to make the mind single pointed and subtle. So when we are able to have a form or any support system, it can be breath, it can be chakras, it can be any visualization. When we are able to have a support system and bring the mind to associate divinity with that support system, which will help the mind to drop vikshepa, wandering of the mind, which will help the mind to become more tuned to what is invisible. The Lord is invisible. So one who follows the form worship or the formless worship associates divinity with some support. For the people who worship the form is the support. People who use the formless, the pointers of the self, they are the support. Sagun upasana, nirgun upasana. But both are upasanas. Both use support systems. Truth is beyond both. The support system helps to make the mind single pointed, makes the mind pure, invokes devotion, invokes surrender. So for emotions, when we have a lot of emotions, then the path is bhakti. So these are 4 paths, 4 philosophies also. And he says, by none of these themselves, they all are a preparatory, means they are an aid. So the knowledge of the self is the beauty, the only Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. The knowledge arising out of the understanding of oneness. In Karma Marg, how do we understand the oneness? By understanding that the Karma Phala is given by the Lord. Bhagwan is the Karma Adhyaksha and Karma Phala Data. And no matter how much karma I do, when the Punya Karma gets exhausted, I will again have to come back to this earth. Understanding the limitations of karma, Karma Phala, surrendering to the Karma Adhyaksha and Karma Phala Data, accepting whatever Bhagwan gives through Prasada Buddhi, performing the actions with Ishvara Arpan Bhav, and ultimately knowing that I am not the Karta, Bhagwan is the Karta. If I follow this path where I shift from karma to karma yoga, then this Brahmatmaikatva Bodha will arise. And the person is liberated. So karma prepared the person, Brahmatmaikatva Bodha liberated. In yoga, what will happen? Yoga also same way. When the mind has become completely quiet, Chitta Laya, as Ramana Maharshi used to call. So Chitta Laya, when it is happened, for some time that mind is hushed into silence, no thoughts arising. But the Vasana pressure is there, so again one is pushed out, again one gets identified with the finite. But when that person gets an initiation into this knowledge of the self, that in that state of quietude, when no thoughts are there, who knows that there are no thoughts? Who is that knower, that entity? That is pure consciousness, the witness. So through that contemplation on that witness, the person comes to know the truth. Brahmatmaikatva Bodha happens. In Sankhya, very simple understanding, Purusha in me is the same as Purusha in everybody else. Just a little bit of shift. So contemplate on the oneness of the individual and the Atma and the Brahman. And through bhakti, we already saw, surrender to the Lord, have a relationship with the Lord, and channelize all the emotions towards the Lord. So each of the paths, they are preparatory means, and when the mind has got ready through Brahmatmaikatva Bodha, each has their own method of Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. In Bhakti Marg, Bhagwan will bless the person with knowledge. In Karma, Yoga, Sankhya, one has to put the effort. Again, there the blessing of the Lord only comes at the last stage, where the Jiva Ishvara Bheda goes away. So Brahmatmaikatva Bodhena Moksha Siddhyati Nanyatha. Person will not get moksha by any other method. This keeps coming again and again. Even in the Gita, Bhagavan said the same thing. In the 3rd chapter, when Arjuna asked the Lord that if you think knowledge is greater than action, then why are you pushing me to do this terrible action? Tatkim karmani ghore mam niyojayasi keshava. Bhagavan replied there, Lokesmin dividha nishtha pura prokta maya naga jnana yogena sankhyanam karma yogena yoginam. So there he used the word jnana yoga to represent this brahmatmaikatva bodha, and he used karma yoga word there to represent all the 4 yogas which are preparatory means. So those who are not prepared must follow any of the 4 means or a combination. We do yogic exercises also, we study the Gita, we intellectually understand, we have the Upasana where we do puja, japa, etc. And we definitely serve the society, do karma. So one can follow all also and prepare oneself and then come to this. So that's the first verse in this section, glory of self-knowledge. The beauty of knowledge of the self is that it is only direct means to know the self. Now Shankaracharya ji gives a few analogies. I'll just come in a minute. So now he gives some analogies. This Vivek Chudamani has this uniqueness that many principles of Vedanta are explained through different analogies, and Shankaracharya ji goes into a lot of elaborate descriptions of many different analogies. So let us see 57th one. Vinaya Rupa Saundaryam Tantri Vadana Saushthavam Prajaranjana Matram Tat Nasam Rajyaya Kalpate. So he says Veena, the form and the beauty of the Veena, Veenayaha Rupa Saundaryam. Tantri Vadana Saushthavam, the proficiency of playing on the Veena, one may have acquired. Prajaranjana Matram Tat, it is only to please the audience. However great the Veena player may be, it is to please the audience. Audience gets inspired, happy, listening to the music. Nasamrajyaya Kalpate, that is not enough to become a king. What is this connection? What is this analogy suddenly of a Veena which has come? So it was believed that Veena is one of the toughest instruments to play, and to get the sound out of it requires a lot of skill and then a lot of practice to play it very proficiently. So people used to have a saying earlier, saying that if you can play a Veena, you can become a king. Meaning it requires that kind of a capability and skill to bring the music out of the Veena and bring it out nicely. So here he says that it may be a beautiful instrument, it may produce wonderful music, you may have mastered it also, but that is all to please the audience. Just because I can play the Veena does not mean that I can actually become the king. There are so many players of the Veena, so many efficient players who have mastered it. But to become the king, a different quality altogether is required. Yes, no doubt that a person who is playing Veena may exhibit some such skills, and if that person works on it, may become the king also. If the person cultivates what it requires to be the king. So the example given here is for that a person who merely has gone through the yogas, it may be an expert in that, doesn't mean directly that the person will become. So here the word king is a samrajya. The word samrajya is also used for understanding, for the term is also for indicating that the kingdom is the kingdom within, and you become the king of that kingdom within. So to play the Veena, what all skills are required? Those skills one has cultivated. So if we take the example, the Veena is our own body, and the strings are the mind. The player, the jiva, has to use this equipment of the body and the mind and tune it nicely to bring out the music. But just because the person has brought out the music, tuned the BMI through the performance of the 4 yogas, doesn't mean that person will become the king of the inner kingdom. Meaning, the knowledge of the self need not arise just because the person has tuned the BMI. But yes, the tuning of the BMI is an important qualification. So the analogy is given in that way, the comparison is given in that way. So the Veena is not just the external equipment, the instrument to play, the Veena is our body. However glorious it may be, Veenayaha Rupa Saundaryam Tantri Vadana Saushthavam. However integrated by the person may have made it with the practice of 4 yogas, but Prajaranjana Matram Tat, that can help people, that can help the individual, but that will not directly by itself make the person the king, make the person know the absolute self. So again, through this analogy, the glory of knowledge of self is brought out, that the rest of the paths and knowledge of the self, the connection between them is they are not parallel, they are serial. They are one after the other, not running parallelly. One may try to do it parallelly, like we follow the 4 yogas, so we try to study Vedanta also and we intellectually understand. And at the same time, we may contemplate also. So 4 yogas on one side, and every day certain time we spend in contemplation on the other side. We may try and do it parallelly, and there's nothing wrong in doing it parallelly. But what happens is, if the mind is not prepared, the proper contemplation on the self won't happen. So though we want it to be parallel, try to make it parallel, it won't happen parallelly, because the readiness is not there. So the mind will again wander, or we have to bring it back to upasana, mantra japa, puja, or any such simpler support. But when the mind is ready, then sequentially it happens. And that's why for a long time, upasana is only prescribed. Even in the Upanishads, for the seeker who is not prepared, the Upanishad will give upasanas. Some people think, unfortunately, that Upanishads are only Jnana Marg, there is no bhakti. Somebody said that also recently. That in the Upanishads, there is no mention of bhakti. There is enough mention of bhakti in the Upanishads. So many upasanas are given, and Bhagavan is praised in so many different ways in the Upanishads. And the Upanishads definitely destroys the delusion that there is difference between Jiva and Ishvara. It destroys that. So upasanas are mentioned in the Upanishads, and they will help the person to prepare the mind. So if I'm not able to get the philosophy immediately, get the knowledge of the self, if I'm not ready, then the teacher will say, like in the Kenopanishad, he gives him different upasanas. Thunder and lightning, winking of an eye. Like that he gives different upasanas. Follow certain values, satyam, etc. So dharma, follow the duties, prepare your mind through dharma and karma. Then do certain upasanas. Because the student asked at the end of the discourse, when the whole Upanishad is over, suddenly the student gets up and says, "Oh teacher, you are telling all this is okay, but please tell what is the Upanishad?" The whole Upanishad got over. The bright student got the knowledge, went also. And the dull student is sitting there. So parallelly to do, we may believe it is parallelly happening, but it is sequential, one after the other. So should we not contemplate at all? Not like that. When we contemplate, we should know what is the, where is the mind abiding? Is it abiding in the state of contemplation on the Lord or on the self? If it is, then continue that. If it is not, come down to one more level, do mantra japa, do singing of the bhajans, stutis, Vedic chanting, any of that. So coming back to the example here of the veena. So when the veena is played and beautiful music comes out, many people are benefited, they feel inspired, they are very happy. In the same way, we find that there are people who will use the four means of preparation for this purpose. Like yoga is used not just to purify the mind, but many, and then gain the knowledge of the self. But for many, yoga today is just a physical discipline, not even quietude of the mind in that sense which yoga refers to. And forget knowing Brahman through yoga. Majority use yoga today for what? For some reduction of BP, weight loss, good health, a little bit of peaceful mind. That's all. That's the limitation of yoga. So prajaranjana matram, it is only to please. Some use it even as a livelihood. Nothing wrong in the using it as a livelihood, but the ultimate goal of yoga is what? Is to know the self, unite with the self, which means to unite. Now, if I'm not doing that, then it is prajaranjana matram. It is only to please people, it is to get some applause, approval. Nasamrajyaya kalpate. That does not lead to. In the same way, so many rituals are done. Rituals are actually done to get vairagya from rituals. To get vairagya from this world itself, actually. That this is a realm of temporary karma. How long can I keep doing karma? Let me rise above karma. Sankhya also is meant for that. To examine closely and analyze and understand that, Are Purusha in me, how can it be separate from all the other Purushas? There's only one Supreme Infinite. Use the knowledge to come to the boundary of the intellect and then go beyond. And same way for bhakti. Today bhakti also is used in so much more commercialization of the path of devotion has happened. All that is prajaranjana matram. Nasamrajyaya kalpate. That if that is the attitude to please, then we are using a means to purify. In fact, we are using it the opposite way. It instead of purifying me, it may bind me also. So while using the preparatory means, the attitude with which I use it and the purpose for which I am using it, both are very crucial. Merely using the means for the means will not work. If I say I am just doing yoga, on its own it will happen. It won't happen. One should know the science properly, follow the steps properly. When we use a Google map and we want to drive the car and we reach the destination, to reach the destination, I can't say that I put on the Google map, now the car will go on its own. We have to follow, the driver has to follow the directions given there and drive accordingly, then one will reach. So I have to know the whole route and consciously drive and follow. In the same way, the 4 yogas. If I don't know their preparatory means and what attitude I should have so that I prepare. And their preparatory means for what? What is the purpose of this? Is Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. So purpose and attitude, they are very important in the preparatory means. Then comes the Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. The preparatory means has made me ready, then we contemplate and know the truth. So now one example was given. Now the next one he says, Vagvaikhari Shabdajhari Shastra Vyakhyan Kaushalam Vaidushyam Vidusham Tadvat Muktaye Natu Muktaye. So here this is one very famous example, a famous verse of the Vivek Chudamani. Vagvaikhari, loud speech. Shabdajhari, flowery words. Shastra Vyakhyana Kaushalam, and a person has expertise in commenting on the Shastras. Vaidushyam Vidusham Tadvat, the intelligence of the intelligent, or the scholarliness of the scholar, is like that. For what it is? Bhuktaye natu muktaye. It is for sense enjoyment or for earning a livelihood, not for mukti. Again, the glory of knowledge, how is it brought out? It is brought out indirectly by saying that the knowledge of the scripture is actually to know the self. But when that purpose is not known or not applied, then we use the Shastra for some other means. It is Vagvaikhari. So our speech is classified into 4 stages. How much the rishis have gone into the depth of each and everything, and they have analyzed and they have presented it to us so beautifully. So he says here the Vaikhari is the 4th stage of speech. Para, Pashyanti, Madhyama and Vaikhari. 4 stages. So what are these 4 stages? Where are these given? In the Yoga Shastra. So what is the Para? The thought that arises, the subtle, as Gurudev would say, the desire that arises, Vasana manifests as desire in the Buddhi. That desire, because of consciousness, it arises. In the presence of consciousness, a desire arises. It's very subtle. We still don't know it properly. That subtle state of Vasana manifesting as desire, a very subtle level of thought, let us say, that is called Para. When we become conscious of it properly, then that is called Pashyanti, to see. Para means very subtle. Pashyanti is to see. Then, when we think more and more about it, crystallize it properly, using words, descriptions. I want this, it should be like this, these are the qualities, this is the whatever, the enjoyment I will get out of it. So one has crystallized it so much more. That is called Madhyama, where we can explain it to somebody also. So that much clarity in words one brings. And then Vaikhari is when we actually speak and speak it loudly. So 4 stages. Para, very subtle level of thought, becomes grosser, where a person is able to understand it clearly. Okay, this is what it is. Refines it much more, is capable of explaining it to others, and then with Vaikhari will speak. 4 levels. So Vag Vaikhari, if somebody has explained something very well, and here as he says Shabdajari, with the play of words, flowery language and poetic expressions and all that, then that means that person has made it so much more clearer in the thinking, crystallized it. Vag Vaikhari Shabdachari, and so they are able to give expert lectures on the scriptures. It may mesmerize the audience also. The content, the diction, the voice modulation, everything. It can just make a person, the audience is glued. Shastra Vyakhyana Kaushalam. And not that the person doesn't know the scripture, the person knows the scripture also and is explaining it well. Inspired people are sitting there listening, hooked on to that person. Vaidushyam Vidusham, very intelligent person. Not somebody who is just dumb or who is contradictory, who is not understanding the meaning of the Upanishad, bringing some contradictory thoughts with no proper clarity, not like that. Vaidushyam Vidusham, very intelligent person, knows the Shastra, explains it very well. But by itself, it will not lead to knowledge of the self. Bhuktaye na tu muktaye. A lot of people will do this only as a livelihood, or to get some followers, or to get certain popularity. Or many times it is para upadesha pandityam. We can give lot of advice to people about spiritual life, about their relationships, about their work, about their personal sadhana. We can give. But when we go through that trouble, then that knowledge is not coming to my rescue. Why? Because it is being externalized. It is only used for bhuktaye, natu muktaye. The more knowledge I get, especially the spiritual knowledge, the more must be humility and more must be the intensity to seek the self. If these two are not happening, Vidya Dadati Vinayam, beautiful line, shloka that is, Vidya Dadati Vinayam, knowledge gives humility. Vinayat Yati Patratam, with humility one becomes deserving. Patratva Dhanam Apnoti, when a person has become a fit instrument, who is humble and ready to receive, then one will get wealth. So people think that this is the actual wealth. No, this is, it can bring actual wealth also, but it is mainly the wealth of bhakti. Patratva dhanam apnoti, the wealth of bhakti. And with bhakti and dharma, dhanat dharmam tata sukham. When I have bhakti, I will not compromise from dharma. I love the Lord and I know that's the means to reach the Lord, dharma. And so through the performance of duties, through proper understanding of what is my true nature, what is my dharma, how I am one with the Lord, dhanat dharmam tata sukham, person experiences bliss. So it starts with that knowledge in the shloka. So the more I study, I can study with the attitude that yes, I want to become the greatest scholar in this. Nobody should be able to defeat me. Or with the attitude that I want to study, use the scripture for livelihood, teach people, get some salary, livelihood. Or I can study with the attitude that I will challenge somebody and defeat them. And I will prove that this opinion is the correct one. So to defeat an opponent, to gain some popularity, to gain livelihood, to become famous, different approaches. But for a seeker, the study of the scripture is only to intensify the quest. Am I able to feel like the student who felt the pressure of bondage, who wants to get liberated, who wants to get the direct means. And if not ready for the direct means, who wants to use the Shastra, prepare oneself, get the direct means, get mukti. That is the attitude, muktaye. Seeker's attitude is not bhuktaye. Seeker's attitude is muktaye. So the Shastra is used for that purpose. That it must help me. It's like a map. So I must use the map, study the map, close it, start walking. It is better to have an intensity of seeking by the study of scriptures than to miss out the intensity and get stuck in flowery expressions and impressing people, subtle logical arguments, constantly refuting different opinions. At the cost of intensity, this should not be done. It is not required. So a Shastra can be used for both. People use it for, because the very word Shastra means Shasanat Trayate iti Shastra. That which protects us by its instruction. That is called Shastra. It protects us from all these, the diversions. Keeps the mind focused, makes the mind intense to seek the truth. If I am studying scripture after scripture, my intensity has not increased, then I am doing bhuktaye, not muktaye. These are some of the words which are hard hitting. Did I get the attitude that I am a 24/7 seeker? Did my behavior through the day change, that how a seeker responds, that's the way I will respond? I will not bother about what the world says, that, how can you forgive? You will be taken for granted. The insecurity is there. I forgive because my mind has to be free. And the Shastra has taught me that importance of forgiveness. So I abide in that Shastra. That is what we learned in the earlier qualification, Shraddha. Shastrasya Guruvakyasya Satya Buddhyavadharana. Sa Shraddha Kadita Sadbhihi Yaya Vastu Upalabhyate. So the study of the Shastra must give me that intensity, and that the hunger to know the self must become more and more. That one is not satisfied even by the preparatory means. Otherwise, many people are satisfied with the preparatory means. We are very happy. Good yoga session we had today. Nice bhajan session we had. No doubt it's good if the sessions went well. But if one is content with the preparation that, okay, relatively mind is peaceful, mind is quiet, little bit of single pointedness has come, bas. Then that is not the full potential manifesting. So that's why Vagvaikhari Shabdajari Shastra Vyakhyana Kaushalam. One may have a lot of scholarly approach and explain many things one can do. But what is important is the last word, Muktaye. Knowledge of the self is the main purpose. So the word Shastra, one meaning is that which protects us by telling us clearly what is the goal, what are the means. In the means, what is the classification? Preparatory means and direct means. What are the obstacles which will come on the way? How to overcome the obstacles? What are the temptations? How not to get distracted? Whole thing will be given. It's like a science, a book, proper book, like Vivek Chudamani itself. It is a Prakarana Grantha, but it will give everything. So technically, we don't even need to read the Upanishads and the Gita in that sense, because everything is given here. That is a Shastra which protects. Shasanat Trayate. And Shasti iti Shastram, that which instructs very clearly how to do and what should be done, when it should be done. Renunciation, how to renounce, what to renounce, when to renounce, very clearly given in the Shastra. So that way the shloka here is an indirect praise of self-knowledge, saying that the Shastra is meant actually for self-knowledge. The entire study of the Veda is to know those three words, Tat Tvam Asi. Not in the literal meaning only, that thou art, but the intuitive understanding that arises when the person contemplates on the truth. So that is this. Vag Vaikhari Shabdajari Shastra Vyakhyana Kaushalam. So the question to introspect is this. Is my study making me more intense in my seeking? I can become intense in my seeking in the preparatory stage or in the direct stage. Either ways. With more consistency, more intensity, I practice Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raj Yoga, Jnana Yoga as a preparatory means. And if I feel I have crossed that, then anyway the intensity will be very, very high for contemplation on the self, and the mind doesn't get distracted. So either ways, in the preparatory means or in the direct means, in both. Now this thought is continued ahead with a very puzzling verse, which has to be understood in the right context, otherwise there is a chance of misunderstanding. Avijñāte pare tattve shastradhitistu nishphala. Vijñāte pipare tattve shastradhitistu nishphala. Says avijñāte pare tattve. If you don't know the higher self, the study of the scriptures is a waste. Shastradhitistu nishphala. And if you know the higher self, Vijñāte pare tattve, Shastradhitistu nishphala. There is no point in studying the scripture. So basically, we don't need to study the scripture. One can quote this verse also saying, Arey, what is this? If you don't know the truth, what is the point of studying the Shastra? Avijñāte pare tattve. And if you know the truth, then you don't need the Shastra because you already realize the truth. Shastra is only a map, a means. So somebody can use this shloka and say that study is not required, reflection is not required. From tomorrow morning, no Vivek Chudamani class because Shastra Dhitistu Nishphala is all fruitless. Unnecessary effort, getting up in the morning, getting ready, sitting, listening, not required. Shastra Dhitistu Nishphala. And who is saying that? Shastra only saying. So what does this mean? So the context has to be understood properly. Avijñāte pare tattve, when I don't know the truth, then to study the scriptures is a waste. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that don't study the scriptures. Because I don't know the truth, I open the scripture and read so that I come to know, at least intellectually I know, path I will know, and then I walk. What this means, like Gurudev has written, no? You see in this second paragraph he has written this. The paradox is resolved when we give a little conscious application of purified intellect on the word knowing in both the lines of the verse. Without knowing in the first and having known in the second. In both the cases, knowing connotes a different meaning. The literal and the indicative. In the first line, it means intellectually understanding, and in the second line, it means realizing. That's the difference. So if I am studying the scripture and I am not understanding intellectually, meaning I don't have the clarity, then the study of scriptures is a waste. So many people use the scripture to do their own interpretation. Take out one line, misinterpret it, speak about it, confuse themselves, confuse people also. Clarity is not there. So then the study of the scriptures is a waste, where I have not understood properly, where intellectually I am not clear. And that is the opposite also. It is confusing, contradictory understanding, misunderstanding. then the study of the scriptures is a waste. So avijñāte pare tattve, it must result in an intellectual conviction and clarity. The study of the Shastra must give me the clarity that yes, this is the self, that this is how God exists. This is why we say that world is an illusion. Proper clarity. Then the study of the scripture is fruitful because it is led to an intellectual understanding. And having understood that, then I should start walking the path. Vijñāte bhi pare tattve shastradhitistu nishphala. When I have known intellectually, but I am not putting efforts to realize, then again, meaning of the Shastra is useless. And if I have reached the goal, then anyway I have gone beyond. But that is given, that is not even to be understood. A person who has reached the destination has no use of the map. But the person who has not reached the destination, in two stages the person needs the map. One is to get clarity on the map itself. Okay, this leads to this, leads to this. These are the milestones. This is the place. This many kilometers I have to travel. That clarity has to be there of the whole route of the destination. Plan the time accordingly. But having seen that clearly, I need to fold up that map and start walking. And then as I walk, the realizations will happen about the map. Okay, this was said, now this has come, now next step. So this is the meaning. Avijñāte pare tattve shastradhitistu nishphala. One meaning is that if I have not got intellectual clarity, the study of the scriptures is a waste. Then, having got intellectual clarity, I must start walking the path and realizing what the Shastra says in my own heart. Then the study of the scripture is fruitful. If it doesn't happen, neither the preparation is happening nor the application of the direct means and realization is happening, then the study of the scripture is useless. It's like studying a map continuously and then not even embarking on the journey, or getting stuck on the way in vain arguments and intellectual discussions where the person seeking has not begun only. Then the first line applies. Avijñāte pare tattve. The person has not understood the supreme truth. What the Shastra is trying to say, the person has not understood. What the person is trying to do is get stuck in some argumentation, get some benefit out of it, prove oneself as a very strong intellectual. Then one has actually not understood the scripture properly. For that person, the study of the scripture is useless. Like Shankaracharya ji used to give the analogy of a donkey carrying the golden bricks. The donkey doesn't know the value of the golden bricks. He's just carrying. In the same way, in our head, we carry golden bricks. It may be born out of Shastra study also. But from this word standpoint, it says it is useless. That study of Shastra is useless. If it is not brought about proper clarity, which pushes me to walk the path and know the truth. So these two. So again, the glory of self-knowledge is indirectly brought out, saying that the purpose of Shastra is this, to prepare oneself as well as to start walking the path, and through self-knowledge, the Param Tattva has to be known. The scripture, our Vedas go to the extent of saying that when a person has realized the truth, that state is the state where yatra vedaha avedaha bhavanti. The scripture becomes redundant after that. In fact, Gurudev used to say that to a man of realization, even the Vedas dare not prescribe the rules of code and conduct. What the man of realization does becomes the code of conduct for people. That exalted state is this person reveling in. So the study of Shastra must lead to that realization, and through that the purpose of Shastra is fulfilled. If that has not happened, then am I using the Shastra for preparation properly? gaining intellectual clarity, removing doubts, start walking the path. If that also I'm not doing, then the study of scripture is useless. Then I'm only using it as any other objective science. I am different, that is different. I use it for some other external means. So that is condemned. The understanding, walking the path, realizing the truth, that is not condemned. So the shloka should not be used to think that, okay, why should I study the scripture? I must study the scripture. Sarvasya lochanam shastram. The scripture is the eye of the whole world. Meaning the vision of the scriptures is what we must be guided by. So for today, we will stop here. Any questions? You're welcome to ask.
हरिओम स्वामी जी।
हरिओम।
आपने जो वैखरी वाणी, पश्यंती, परा और मध्यम वाणी का जो बात किया, श्रीमद् भागवत और रामचरितमानस में जो तुलसीदास जी ने नाम जप की जो महिमा बताई है, तो उसमें उल्टा फ्लो लेना चाहिए या मतलब वैखरी से परा तक जाना चाहिए, या कैसे मीनिंग लेना चाहिए?
Yeah, in that you go from gross to subtle. Loud japa, soft japa, mental japa, contemplation.
वो भी एक प्रिपरेटरी मीन्स ही हुआ, राइट?
Yeah, see, when we say preparatory means, what is the meaning here is, when we apply this method of japa, by itself that japa is a preparatory means. But when that japa ultimately leads to complete surrender to the Lord, where the jiva and Ishvara bheda goes away, that is the direct means. So through japa itself one can realize the truth. One doesn't have to come to Vedanta only. What was said was Brahmatmaikatva Bodha. As I said earlier also, no, that Bodha, Bhagavan blesses that person with the knowledge of the self. So that Bodha will happen when the jiva is doing this much of japa. The anugrah of Ishvara also will come through that japa, and that Atmaikatva Bodh last stage it will arise. So the preparatory means is only in terms of till the duality exists between Jiva and Ishvara, it is purifying the mind and using the preparatory means. But then that duality has to go. Either it goes by our effort or by grace of the Lord, depending on which path I am taking. So then it becomes a direct means.
Thank you.
So it doesn't have to come to the path of Vedanta.
Hare Swamiji, you said about Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa. Before that is Nyaya, and what is it? 6. So
Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Sankhya, Yoga. These are 4. Then Purva Mimamsa, Uttar Mimamsa. Totally 6.
so these are 6. What it is called?
Shat Darshan.
Okay.
6 schools of philosophy. Okay, we stop here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.